The clinking of silverware filled the Cooper household, that polite, rhythmic sound that families make when they're pretending everything is fine. The chandelier above the oak table cast a warm, buttery glow over the dishes Linda had spent all afternoon preparing. Her husband, David, was talking about quarterly reports again, his voice calm but distant, the way it had been for years. Linda smiled when he spoke, the same way she always did, soft, practiced, dutiful. Her eyes moved to Emily, who was unusually radiant tonight, her laughter lighter, her hair brushed perfectly. Then she saw him. Ryan. He sat across from her, beside Emily, his sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms dusted with freckles. His smile was easy, confident, too comfortable for someone new. The way he said, "Mrs. Cooper," carried a warmth that unsettled her, as if he already knew how to charm women twice his age. "So, Ryan," David asked, reaching for his wine, "what do you do?" "I'm in graphic design," Ryan replied, leaning forward, elbows on the table. "Mostly freelance work for small brands. I like building things from scratch." Linda watched his lips move, watched the faint scar that curved near his jawline when he smiled. She wasn't sure why her chest tightened, admiration or warning, she couldn't tell. Emily was glowing beside him. "He's really good, Mum. You should see the stuff he makes. He helped me design my art portfolio website." "That's wonderful," Linda said softly. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears, as if she were listening from another room. Ryan's eyes met hers for the first time. He held her gaze, too long, too direct. "Your house is beautiful," he said. "You have great taste." Linda's hand paused on her glass. Compliments from younger men used to mean nothing to her. Tonight, though, it felt like an electric current, faint but dangerous. "Thank you," she replied, forcing a polite smile. David chuckled, oblivious. "You can thank Linda for that. She has an eye for details. Drives me crazy sometimes." Ryan smiled again. "I can tell." A small silence followed. The air grew heavier, though no one else seemed to feel it. Linda reached for her napkin, dabbing the corner of her lips, trying to steady her breathing. Emily's laughter pulled the attention away. "Ryan's been helping me with a short film project. You'll love it when it's done, Mum." Linda nodded. "I'm sure I will." Her eyes flicked toward him again, a reflex she couldn't control now. Later, when the plates were cleared and the laughter faded, Linda stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing dishes. Through the reflection on the window, she saw Ryan helping Emily with her coat by the door. He looked up for a brief second, and their eyes met again, this time in the silence between them. A slow, unspoken recognition passed. Something that shouldn't have existed. Outside, the wind stirred fallen leaves across the yard. Inside, Linda gripped the edge of the counter, heart unsteady, watching her daughter's boyfriend walk out the door, unaware that something irreversible had just begun. Days turned into weeks, but that night at the dinner table lingered like an echo Linda couldn't silence. She told herself she was being foolish, that Ryan's glance had meant nothing, yet every time he came by, she found herself noticing details she shouldn't. The faint smell of his cologne when he walked past. The way he said her name, softer than necessary. Emily often brought him over on weekends to study or edit her film project. Linda would pass through the living room, pretending to look for her phone or straighten the magazines. She'd catch Ryan's eyes following her for a moment too long before he returned to his laptop. It began innocently enough. Or at least that's what she told herself. One Saturday morning, David had gone golfing as he did every weekend. Emily and Ryan worked on the sofa, papers spread around them. Linda offered them lemonade. When she handed Ryan his glass, their fingers brushed, light, quick, but the shock of contact sent a pulse through her arm. He looked up. Neither spoke, but the silence said too much. Later, while Emily stepped out to take a call, Ryan walked into the kitchen. Linda stood at the counter, slicing fruit she didn't really need. He leaned on the doorframe. "You always look so calm," he said quietly. She froze. "Calm?" He smiled, stepping closer. "Yeah. Like nothing ever shakes you." Her throat tightened. "Maybe that's just what you see." Their eyes met, the same dangerous stillness from the first night. Then Emily's voice carried down the hallway, and Ryan stepped back as if nothing had happened. That night, Linda couldn't sleep. David lay snoring beside her, his back turned, phone buzzing faintly with work emails. She stared at the ceiling, the darkness pressing down. Guilt tangled with a strange, breathless excitement. She hadn't felt noticed in years. Now she did, and it terrified her. The following week, she ran into Ryan alone again. Emily had gone upstairs to shower. He stood in the living room, flipping through photos on his camera. "She's lucky," he said suddenly. Linda looked up. "Who?" "Emily," he replied. "To have a mom who actually cares. You'd be surprised how rare that is." The compliment was innocent, but his tone wasn't. He was looking at her the way men used to, with curiosity, admiration, hunger. She felt it vibrate between them, invisible but heavy. Linda took a step back, forcing a smile. "You should tell her that." He grinned faintly. "I just did." Before she could respond, Emily called from upstairs, and the spell broke. Ryan gave a small nod and left. Linda stood frozen, her heart pounding as though she'd done something wrong, even though, technically, she hadn't. The next few days were a blur of avoidance. She busied herself with chores, kept conversations short. But no matter how much she tried to suppress it, the thought of him kept surfacing. In dreams, in quiet mornings, in the empty space beside her husband's silence. One evening, David came home late. "Don't wait up," he muttered, kissing her cheek absently before heading to his office. The scent of printer ink and exhaustion clung to him. She watched him go, her heart a hollow drum. The house fell still. From the window, she could see Emily and Ryan outside by the car, laughing under the porch light. Ryan glanced toward the window, and even from that distance, Linda felt it again. That unspoken current neither could deny. She turned away quickly, pressing her palms to the countertop, whispering to herself, "Stop it, Linda. Stop before it goes too far." But deep down, she already knew something had started, and stopping it would soon be impossible. The rain began just after dusk, soft at first, then turning fierce, sheets of water beating against the windows like an angry drum. Emily had gone to visit her college friend for the weekend, and David was away on a business trip. The house, for once, was quiet. Too quiet. Linda moved through the dim living room, straightening pillows that didn't need straightening. The storm outside echoed the chaos in her mind. She told herself she was content, that she'd use this night to rest, maybe watch a film. But when her phone buzzed and Ryan's name appeared on the screen, her breath caught. "Ryan, hey, just checking if Emily made it safely." "Linda, yes. She texted an hour ago." "Ryan, good. I was near your neighborhood. Thought I'd drop something off for her, a hard drive she left in my car." She hesitated before replying. "Sure. You can leave it on the porch." Minutes later, headlights flashed through the rain. Her pulse quickened. She opened the door before she could think better of it. Ryan stood there, soaked, rain dripping from his hair. "Hey," he said, holding up the hard drive. His voice was low, hesitant, but his eyes told another story, the same unspoken thing that had been simmering for weeks. "You're drenched," Linda said, stepping aside. "Come in before you catch pneumonia." He hesitated, then stepped inside. The air between them tightened instantly. She handed him a towel, her fingers brushing his again, that familiar jolt, stronger now. "I should go," he murmured, but didn't move. Linda forced a small smile. "You can wait until the rain slows down." They stood in silence, the thunder outside masking their breathing. The sound of rain on glass filled the space between heartbeats. "Linda," Ryan began, his voice softer, uncertain. She turned toward him, trying to find something to say, anything that would make him leave before the moment swallowed them whole. But when she looked up, his expression disarmed her. There was no arrogance, no manipulation, only desire and confusion mirroring her own. He stepped closer. One step, then another. "You should go," she whispered, though her voice trembled. He stopped inches from her. "Tell me to go and I will." The words hung in the air, fragile as glass. Linda's mind screamed, "You're her mother. You're married. This is wrong." But her body betrayed her. She didn't tell him to leave. The first touch was hesitant, a brush of his hand against her cheek, A slow exhale that felt like surrender. Then the distance between them vanished. It happened quickly, desperately, as though both knew the world outside would condemn them. The storm raged, wind rattling the windows, while inside, the quiet war in Linda's heart ended in defeat. Afterward, she sat on the edge of the bed, the thunder fading into drizzle. Ryan traced her shoulder with a gentleness that only deepened her guilt. "This can't happen again," she whispered. He nodded, but neither of them believed it. When he left that night, Linda stood by the window, watching his car disappear through the rain. She pressed her palm against the glass, tears mixing with the reflection of her face, older, softer, lonelier than she remembered. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Ryan, "I can't stop thinking about you." She typed a reply, then deleted it. Again and again. Finally, she set the phone down, whispering into the dark, "Neither can I." Outside, the rain eased, but inside Linda Cooper's world, the storm had only begun. The following weeks blurred into stolen glances, coded texts, and lies whispered under the weight of guilt. Linda had promised herself the night with Ryan was a mistake, but promises were fragile things. Each message, each hurried call, pulled her deeper into the secret she swore she'd bury. She told herself it was love, not sin, not betrayal, just something that made her feel alive again. But beneath the surface, paranoia began to grow like mold in the corners of her mind. Emily noticed first. Her mother had become restless, distracted, forgetful. She burned dinner twice in 1 week, laughed at nothing, snapped at everything. At night, Linda sat by the window, phone glowing in her trembling hands, pretending she was scrolling through recipes. One morning, as Emily brushed her hair in the hallway mirror, she caught her mother smiling faintly at a text before quickly locking the screen. "Who was that?" Emily asked casually. "Oh, just your father," Linda lied too quickly. Emily shrugged, but the answer lingered like a splinter. Ryan, too, had changed. He still came around, but something in his demeanor had shifted, cautious, distant. When they sat together, Emily noticed his phone never left his pocket. He avoided her eyes more often, his laughter shorter, thinner. One afternoon, while they worked on her film project, Ryan's phone buzzed on the table. He'd gone to the bathroom, leaving it unlocked, something he never did. The message flashed for a moment before the screen dimmed. "Linda C., did you tell her yet? We can't keep doing this." Emily's heart stopped. For a second, she thought she'd misread it. But the name glared back at her, undeniable. Linda C. Her mother. Her throat went dry as she scrolled up, hands shaking. There were more fragments of conversations. "Linda, I can't sleep thinking about you." "Ryan, you know what you do to me." "Linda, she's starting to suspect." Emily dropped the phone as if it had burned her. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Her mother. Her boyfriend. Her mind refused to fit the pieces together. When Ryan returned, she forced a smile, voice brittle. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine," she said too quickly, closing the laptop. "I just remembered, I have to go." She left without explanation, driving nowhere, tears blurring the road. Betrayal clawed at her chest, not just from Ryan, but from the woman who'd raised her. That evening, Linda sat at the kitchen table, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. Her phone lay silent now. Ryan hadn't replied all day. She replayed their last conversation, his promise that they'd figure things out soon. But his silence told her otherwise. When Emily finally came home, her eyes were red, her voice cold. "Rough day?" Linda asked, forcing normalcy. "Yeah," Emily said flatly, walking past her. Linda watched her daughter's back disappear down the hallway, the air between them thick with something unspoken, something that, deep down, she feared Emily already knew. Her phone buzzed once more. A message from Ryan, "We need to talk." Linda's hand trembled as she read it, unaware that her world, and her daughter's, was about to unravel completely. Emily barely slept that night. The messages she'd seen looped endlessly in her mind, each word cutting deeper. Linda C. She's starting to suspect. The way her mother had smiled at her phone, the way Ryan's hand lingered when he touched her shoulder, it all suddenly made horrifying sense. By morning, fury had replaced shock. She needed the truth, needed to hear it from him. When she arrived at Ryan's apartment, the sky was pale and heavy with clouds. He opened the door, surprised. "Them? You didn't text." "I didn't need to," she said, brushing past him. Her voice trembled, a thread pulled too tight. "We need to talk." Ryan hesitated, shutting the door behind her. "What's wrong?" Her eyes blazed. "You tell me." She pulled out her phone and shoved it toward him. "I saw your messages, Ryan." "With her?" His face drained of color. "Emily, don't lie to me," she snapped. "I read them." "Linda C. Who else would that be? My mom?" He rubbed the back of his neck, silent. The weight of that silence was answer enough. Emily's breath hitched. "Oh my God, it's true." "It wasn't supposed to happen," Ryan said finally, voice breaking. It got complicated." "Complicated?" she repeated, laughing bitterly. "You slept with my mother." Ryan stepped closer, hands raised as if to calm her. "It started before I could stop it." "Don't you dare," Emily hissed. "Don't make excuses." Her chest heaved. She grabbed her jacket to leave, but something on the floor caught her eye, a glint of silver near the passenger seat keys on the table. She walked past him, yanking open the door and heading to his car outside. "Emily, wait!" Ryan shouted, running after her. Rain began to fall as she flung open the car door. On the passenger side mat lay a small pearl earring, elegant, unmistakable. Her mother's. The same pair Linda wore every Sunday. Emily picked it up with shaking hands. Her stomach turned. "You didn't even bother to hide it," she whispered. Ryan stood a few feet away, drenched, defeated. "Emily, please," she threw the earring at him, tears streaking her face. "Used me. Both of you." She stormed past him, ignoring his pleas, and drove home through the rain, windshield wipers slapping in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she entered the house, Linda was in the kitchen, pretending to read a magazine. Emily slammed the door behind her, startling her mother. "Where is it?" Emily demanded. Linda frowned. "Where's what?" "Your earring," she spat. "The one you lost in Ryan's car." Linda froze. The color drained from her face. "Emily, I don't." Emily's voice cracked. "How could you? You're my mother." Tears welled in Linda's eyes. "I never meant for it to happen. I was lonely. Your father, this isn't about Dad," she screamed. "You betrayed me. You ruined everything." Linda reached out, sobbing. "Please, let me explain." Emily slapped her hand away. "Don't touch me." The room pulsed with fury and heartbreak, two women bound by blood, divided by shame. David's voice echoed faintly from upstairs. "What's going on down there?" "Nothing." Linda shouted through her tears. Emily grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door. "You both deserve each other," she choked out. "But I swear, Mom, I'll never forgive you." The front door slammed, rattling the picture frames on the wall. Linda sank to her knees, trembling, the rain pounding harder outside. Her phone buzzed on the counter, Ryan's name flashing again. She stared at it, unable to move, realizing the truth. Everything she tried to hide was finally destroying her. And somewhere down the road, Emily drove into the storm, not just away from home, but towards something darker than any of them could yet imagine. The house felt smaller now, suffocating in its own silence. Linda moved from room to room, cleaning and straightening, but the ritual brought no comfort, only a hollow echo of her guilt. Every time she heard a car engine outside, her heart leapt. Every notification on her phone sent a jolt of panic through her chest. David had noticed. He paused one evening as she wiped down the kitchen counter for the third time in an hour. "Linda, are you okay?" His voice was gentle, but there was an edge, a concern he couldn't hide. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, forcing a smile. But he frowned, crossing his arms. "You've been jumpy lately. And last night, you didn't sleep. You didn't even eat dinner." Linda's stomach tightened. I have a lot on my mind." David studied her, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "Is this stress? Or something else?" Her throat went dry. Don't tell him. Don't tell him." Just work stuff, she said, though her mind knew she lied. The truth would destroy everything she'd worked to keep intact. Meanwhile, Ryan had begun avoiding her calls. He texted less, came around less. Fear had crept into him, fear of Emily, fear of exposure. That morning he had called her once, voice strained. "Linda, we need to stop this before it gets worse. Emily's onto us. I can't handle the risk." Linda's hands shook as she gripped the phone. "Stop this? Stop this? Ryan, I can't. I can't lose you. Not now." "You don't understand," he said. "I can't. If Emily finds out, it's over. And I don't want to go to jail." The conversation ended abruptly, leaving her in silence. She wandered into the living room, staring at the wine bottle she had opened that morning. She poured herself a generous glass, then another, then fumbled to find the prescription pills she had been prescribed for her insomnia, a combination that promised relief but whispered danger. She mixed the pills with the wine, swallowing the bitter concoction without thought. The warmth spread quickly, loosening her rigid thoughts but also dragging her deeper into despair. Shadows seemed to stretch in the corners of the room, whispers crawling along the walls. Every creak of the house sounded like a warning. Paranoia gnawed at her. What if Emily tells David? What if Ryan disappears and exposes everything? What if I lose control completely? Her phone buzzed again. She flinched, half expecting Emily's name, half expecting the police. It was Ryan. "We need to be careful. This is getting dangerous." Linda crumpled onto the couch, wine sloshing over her lap. She buried her face in her hands, shaking. Guilt, fear, and desire twisted inside her until she could no longer distinguish one from the other. When David returned later that evening, he found her slumped on the couch, hair disheveled, eyes glazed. "Linda?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. She looked up at him, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to her own ears. "I'm fine, David." "Really?" But she wasn't. Not even close. That night, as thunder rolled in the distance and rain tapped insistently against the windows, Linda sat alone in the dark, staring at her phone. Ryan's name glowed on the screen. She whispered to herself, voice trembling, "I can't lose him. I just can't." Somewhere deep inside, she already knew that the next choice she made, desperate, reckless, forbidden, could change everything forever. Emily didn't sleep that night either. Her mind replayed every stolen glance, every whispered word, every secret message she had uncovered. By morning, she knew she couldn't hold it in any longer. She found her father in his home office, papers scattered around him, eyes tired but sharp. "Dad," she said, voice quivering, "I need to tell you something. Something important." David looked up, sensing the gravity in her tone. "What is it, Emily swallowed hard, holding back tears. It's Mom. And Ryan. They've been together." David froze. His pen hovered above a sheet of paper. "What? Emily, what do you mean?" She handed him the phone, the messages displayed in plain, damning detail. "All of this. I saw it. The texts, the calls, everything. I even found her earring in his car." David's face paled, veins standing out at his temples. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "And my wife, this can't be real." By the time he stormed into the kitchen, Linda was pouring herself another glass of wine, her hands still shaking from the panic of the past few days. "Linda!" David's voice cracked, fury and disbelief intertwining. "What the hell have you done? How could you betray me, betray Emily like this?" Linda froze, wine sloshing onto the counter. "David, wait. Don't wait me," he shouted. "You lied to me. All these weeks. You've destroyed everything." Her hands went to her face, tears streaming down. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely. You just what?" David's voice rose, shaking with rage. "You destroyed our family. Do you even realize what you've done?" Linda's breath came in short, frantic gasps. The panic she had been suppressing bubbled over. She dropped to her knees, pleading. "I love him, David. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. He made me feel alive." At that moment, her phone buzzed. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. She grabbed it, desperate for comfort, but David snatched it away. Ryan's voice was strained when he finally spoke. Linda, we need to stop. This is getting too dangerous. Emily knows now. I can't be part of this anymore. If you keep harassing me, I'll go to the police. Linda's eyes widened in horror. You can't leave me. You used me. She accused, trembling. I'm not using you, Ryan replied firmly, voice edged with fear. You made your own choices. But if you continue, I'll tell the authorities what's been happening. Linda sank to the floor, phone slipping from her hands. Fear, desperation, and rage mingled in her chest like a living thing. David stood above her, silent now, his eyes hollow with heartbreak. The air in the kitchen was thick with tension. Outside, rain tapped lightly against the windows, echoing the chaos within. Linda's world was unraveling, and for the first time, she realized the full weight of her actions, that her obsession, her choices, had led them to a precipice from which there was no turning back. The house was silent, save for the ticking of the clock in the living room. Rain had stopped, leaving the night damp and heavy. Linda sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly, heart hammering in her chest. Her thoughts spun. Ryan had threatened to go to the police, Emily had exposed them, and David's eyes of betrayal haunted her every memory. A sudden knock at the door made her jump. She rose, trembling, and peeked through the peephole. Ryan stood there, rain-soaked from the brief drizzle, carrying a small duffel bag. His face was tense, guarded, the easy charm gone. I'm just here to grab my things, he said, voice low but steady. I don't want trouble. Linda's throat tightened. You shouldn't have come, she whispered, almost to herself. He stepped inside, dripping water onto the floor. I need to leave, Linda. For good. Her chest constricted. No, she said sharply. You don't get to leave. Not like this. Not after everything. Ryan froze. Linda, you've got to calm down. This has gone too far. She advanced toward him, hands trembling. Too far? She spat. You think this is too far? You used me. You took everything from me, and now you think you can just walk away? His eyes softened, but he didn't move closer. I never wanted this to happen. But if you don't let me go, things will get worse. For both of us. Linda's vision blurred with anger and panic. Her fingers wrapped around the nearest object, the fireplace poker leaning against the hearth. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she stepped forward. You don't understand. You can't just leave. You belong here, with me. Ryan held up his hands. Linda, stop. Please, just stop. But her mind was a storm of fear and obsession. She swung the poker without thinking. The tip connected with his shoulder with a sickening crack. Ryan's body jolted, and he let out a sharp, choking cry. The sound echoed through the quiet house, bouncing off the walls, bouncing off her sanity. Linda froze, staring at him, the weapon trembling in her hand. Blood bloomed across his shirt like a grotesque painting. Ryan stumbled back, clutching his wound, eyes wide with disbelief. Linda, what have you done? Tears streamed down her face. I didn't mean to, she whispered, voice breaking. He dropped the duffel bag, stumbling toward the door. She grabbed it again, swinging the poker instinctively, forcing him to retreat. You're not leaving me. Not ever. He tripped on the threshold, collapsing onto the porch. Rain began to fall again, cold and relentless, mixing with the blood on the wooden boards. Linda stood frozen, shaking, the poker slipping from her hands onto the wet floor. For a long, horrifying moment, the house was silent again, save for his ragged breathing and the steady patter of rain. Linda sank to her knees beside him, horror and disbelief flooding her senses. She wanted to scream, to apologize, to fix everything, but the truth was undeniable. In a moment of fury and fear, she had crossed a line from which there was no return. The front door creaked as she leaned over him, blood mixing with rain, realizing the world outside the storm was about to close in on her forever. Rain battered the roof and pounded the windows as Linda's trembling hands gripped Ryan's lifeless body. His blood had soaked through his shirt, leaving dark, wet streaks across her own sleeves. Panic churned in her stomach, but beneath it was something colder, numbing, a mechanical, detached resolve. She dragged him across the kitchen floor, past the living room, and out the back door. The garden, once a symbol of her husband David's love and care, glistened under the downpour. Mud clung to her shoes, cold seeping into her bones, but she didn't stop. She had no time to stop. The shed loomed at the edge of the yard, its paint peeling, its door stiff from disuse. She pushed it open, the hinges groaning like a warning. Inside, she struggled to maneuver Ryan onto the dirt floor, her arms trembling uncontrollably. She sank to her knees beside him, hands slick with rainwater and blood, and whispered, "He made me do this." Her words hung in the shed, swallowed by the heavy air, as if spoken to the storm itself. Linda dug quickly, frantically, the shovel biting into the softened earth. Each scoop of soil fell with a wet thud, echoing in her ears like the beat of a guilty heart. The rain mixed with sweat and tears, running down her face and into the mud at her feet. She worked methodically, almost hypnotically, burying the evidence, her hands shaking so violently she feared they might fail her. Every flash of lightning illuminated her desperate movements, casting eerie shadows across the shed walls. This can't be real, she thought. It can't be happening. Her mind numbed as she tamped the final layer of earth down, smoothing it to hide the mound. She pressed the shovel into the soil once more, as if to convince herself that this act, this irreversible, monstrous act, could somehow be erased. The rain continued without mercy, soaking her clothes, plastering her hair to her cheeks. She leaned back against the shed, panting, numb to everything except the pounding of her own heartbeat and the relentless patter of water on the roof. "I didn't mean to," she whispered again, almost inaudibly. Her hands rested in the mud, trembling. "I didn't want it to go this far. He made me do this." The realization settled heavily on her chest. She had crossed a line. There was no turning back. The garden that once symbolized love and life now held darkness beneath its soil, a secret she alone would carry. As the storm raged on, she stood slowly, surveying the shed and the rain-soaked garden. The air smelled of wet earth and iron, and the world outside felt both distant and suffocatingly close. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was Emily, checking in after the storm. Linda stared at the screen, numb, heart-pounding. She didn't answer. Not yet. The night stretched on, long and oppressive. She realized that from this moment forward, nothing would be the same. Every step, every glance, every breath would carry the weight of what she had done. And deep inside, a terrifying truth began to form. Secrets like this never stay buried forever. The morning news flashed across the television screen. Local young man reported missing. Police investigate possible foul play. Emily stared at the screen, disbelief and fear tangled in her chest. Ryan. Missing. Her heart raced. She grabbed her phone and posted a desperate plea online, sharing photos, details, begging anyone with information to come forward. Messages and comments flooded in, but none brought him back. Inside the Cooper house, Linda moved like a ghost. She made coffee, washed dishes, and smiled politely whenever David walked by, but behind her eyes, panic simmered. Every knock at the door, every ring of the phone sent her heart hammering. She repeated the same story. Ryan had been visiting, left early, nothing unusual. But the cracks in her facade grew visible, small tremors in her voice, hesitations in her explanations. Detectives arrived at the house mid-morning, notebooks in hand, questions sharp as knives. Linda answered carefully, rehearsing every detail, yet even she noticed the subtle inconsistencies. Where had she been that night? Why hadn't she heard from Ryan? Each small slip felt like a needle pricking at her nerves. David, for the first time in years, looked at his wife with suspicion rather than trust. Her calm, controlled demeanor had begun to unravel in ways he couldn't ignore. He started quietly searching, checking her phone while she was in the kitchen, opening her car glove box when she was distracted. Every unfamiliar message, every unexplained call made his chest tighten. Emily stayed glued to social media, pleading for answers, sharing her own fears. "Where are you, Ryan?" she typed, tears streaking her face. "Please, just come home." Friends and classmates reached out, offering comfort, but the emptiness remained. Linda's hands shook as she poured herself another cup of coffee, trying to appear normal. Yet the questions gnawed at her. Will the police connect the dots? Will David notice the lies? Will Emily ever forgive me if the truth comes out? Later that evening, Detective Marlowe leaned over the counter, voice calm but insistent. Mrs. Cooper, can you tell me again where Ryan was Friday night? Your statements don't match what your neighbors reported. Linda's lips parted, a faint tremor in her jaw. I told you he left after dinner. Marlowe's eyes narrowed slightly. We'll need to verify that. David stepped back silently, watching. The room felt impossibly heavy. He reached for his phone, eyes narrowing at a recent message from Linda, one she thought he hadn't seen. The house, once a place of quiet routine, had shifted. Suspicion, fear, and tension hovered like a thick fog. Linda felt it pressing against her chest, and she realized that no matter how carefully she tried to hide the truth, the world around her was closing in. Outside, the sky darkened, mirroring the storm growing within the Cooper family. Emily's online pleas continued, David's suspicion deepened, and inside, Linda's panic tightened like a noose. Something had been buried in that garden, hiss. But secrets, she knew, never stayed hidden for long. It was early morning when the first sign appeared. The neighbor's dog, a scrappy golden retriever named Max, was digging furiously near the edge of the Cooper's backyard shed. Mud flew in clumps, rain-soaked soil clinging to the dog's paws. Something caught Max's teeth, a fragment of fabric, dark and soaked, torn along the edges. Linda, standing at the kitchen window with coffee in her hands, stiffened. Her heart seized and a cold sweat spread across her back. She told herself it was nothing, that the earth and rain had disturbed a scrap of old clothing. But deep down she knew better. By mid-morning, police cars lined the street. Flashing lights reflected on the wet pavement. Detectives Marlowe and Peterson approached with solemn faces, holding a search warrant. Linda's hands shook as she opened the door, forcing her voice steady. Good morning, officers, she said too lightly, forcing a smile that felt like paper against the storm brewing in her chest. Marlowe nodded, holding up the warrant. Mrs. Cooper, we need access to your backyard. There's evidence that needs to be examined. David emerged from upstairs, his face pale, suspicion hardening into dread. Emily appeared behind him, clutching her phone, tears brimming. Linda felt the walls of her carefully constructed world start to crumble. Each step toward the shed felt like dragging herself through a nightmare she couldn't wake from. Mud clung to her shoes, just as it would cling to the secrets she had tried to bury. Detectives moved efficiently, digging where Max had unearthed the fragment. Linda's breath hitched, her palms slick with sweat. She couldn't tear her eyes away, though she wanted to. Then it happened. The shovel struck something solid beneath the soil. Marlowe's eyes widened as he cleared the remaining dirt. A dark, blood-stained shape emerged, the unmistakable outline of a body, partially concealed by layers of wet earth. Linda's knees buckled, and she collapsed against the shed, covering her face with trembling hands. No, no, she whispered, her voice breaking. Emily's screams split the morning air, raw, piercing, unrestrained. She dropped to her knees beside the mound, her face a mixture of horror and disbelief. Mom, what did you do? She choked out, voice cracking. David froze, hands clenching at his sides, staring at the scene with a mix of rage, betrayal, and shock. Linda, why? Linda couldn't answer. Words failed her. She felt nothing and everything at once. Panic, guilt, fear, numbness. The rain continued to fall, washing over the yard, mingling with the blood and mud, as if the storm outside mirrored the one within her. Detectives began documenting the scene, taking photographs, and securing the area. Peterson crouched beside the body, shaking his head slightly. This matches the description of the missing young man, he muttered, voice low. Linda's knees gave way completely. She sank into the mud, water soaking her clothes, unable to breathe. Emily leaned over her, sobbing, whispering, Why, Mom? The world she had built, her marriage, her reputation, her daughter's trust, collapsed around her. Every lie, every impulsive decision, every stolen moment of passion had led here. For the first time, Linda understood the true cost of what she had done. And outside, the storm continued to rage, as if the heavens themselves were mourning the life she had destroyed. The fluorescent lights of the interrogation room cast a harsh, unforgiving glare. Linda sat slumped in the metal chair, hands cuffed before her, her hair matted, eyes red and swollen. The weight of weeks, lies, panic, fear, and now discovery pressed down on her chest like a physical force. Across from her, Detective Marlowe watched silently, letting the silence stretch, knowing the moment would come when her guilt could no longer hide. Finally, her voice broke, raw and tremulous. "I didn't mean to." Marlowe leaned forward slightly. "Start from the beginning, Mrs. Cooper. Tell us what happened." Tears streamed down her face. She shook her head, her mind replaying every detail: the stolen glances, the forbidden desire, the escalating panic, the strike of the poker, the burial in the garden. Words tumbled out in a trembling flood, unedited, raw. "I was lonely. David, he was always at work. And Ryan, he made me feel alive again. I didn't plan any of it. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but then I panicked. I thought if he left, if Emily knew, everything would be ruined. I didn't know what else to do. I struck him, and I buried him. I can't undo it. I can't take it back." Her voice cracked further, sobs racking her body. Love, fear, shame, it twisted me into something I never thought I could be. A killer. That's what I am. That's all I am now. Detectives listened, taking notes, recording every word. The tape clicked softly, capturing her confession for eternity, a testament to the collapse of a life once orderly and protected by pretense. Hours later, Linda was led away in a police cruiser, her eyes hollow, her body drained. The rain had stopped outside, but the storm she carried would never abate. Months passed. The house remained eerily quiet, windows dark, rooms empty. Emily returned one afternoon, tentative, walking up the familiar path. She paused on the porch, her fingers brushing the chipped railing. Memories of betrayal, heartbreak, and rage surged through her. She stepped inside, the air thick with absence. Each room echoed with what once was laughter, arguments, love, lies. She wandered through the spaces, stopping at the garden where secrets had been buried. Her eyes fell on the shed, closed and silent. Kneeling, she traced the dirt and grass with her fingers, imagining the weight of what had been hidden beneath. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, fragile as the wind that drifted through the empty house. "She was supposed to protect me," Emily murmured, tears trailing down her cheeks. "She was supposed to love me, guide me, not destroy everything." The house responded with silence, the only sound the creak of floorboards under her feet and the faint rustle of leaves outside. The camera of her memory captured every detail: the emptiness, the betrayal, the shadow of what once was. Outside, the sun broke through clouds, illuminating the house in pale, unforgiving light. Emily stood slowly, inhaling deeply, letting the air fill the hollow ache inside her. She turned away from the past, but its mark lingered, haunting every step she would take from that day forward. The confession tape, the buried secrets, the shattered trust, all remained, a testament to love twisted by desire, fear, and obsession, leaving scars that would never fade. The Cooper household, once a symbol of family and safety, had become a monument to betrayal, a chilling reminder of how far one person could fall when consumed by the darkest impulses of the heart. The end.